Hi, good morning, everybody. Yes, you've got me twice this morning. This time I'm joined by the lovely Jo Stockdale, who has the most incredible Daisy bike T-shirt that I've ever seen in my life. Show us the T-shirt. Show us the T-shirt. That is cool. Say yes to adventure.
New adventure.
New
So, yeah,
adventure. Well, who wouldn't?
for the 1st of September, it always feels like the start of a new year.
Yeah. Somebody was telling me yesterday there's only 90 days to go. I thought, no, you've got your month wrong. There's 120 days to go. 120 days to go. Wishing you just lost us a month. Lost us a month. We don't. Well, especially when the sun's shining like it is today.
Yeah,
we need another month. Somebody was, we've got some logs coming today. Somebody was saying they've got the heating on, and no, we need a bit more. We need a bit more September before we get diving into October. Where are you, Jo? Tell us a little bit. I was going to sound like Cilla Black then. What's your name and where'd you come from? But yeah, where are you, Jo?
I'm based in Nottinghamshire.
Yeah, cool.
So,
and tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so yeah, my name's Jo Stockdale, and my business is Well Within Reach, and so I am broadly concerned with the social and emotional competence and well-being and development of children and young people. Not just children and young people, because I think one of the things that we often forget is that children and young people become adults. So often we kind of get confused that the age of the body doesn't necessarily reflect the age of the brain that's inside that body. And so although I primarily work with children and young people, I do a little bit of work with in offending services and generally things where life hasn't panned out as it should in childhood. And so the issues that have prevailed in childhood continue into adulthood. And the primary thing that I am concerned with, not exclusively, but I talk a lot about brain development and making it much more easy and accessible and understandable to know what's going on inside our children's developing brains and working with that.
Yeah. So how would you kind of sum up what's going on in children's brains in lockdown? What have you seen? What have you seen in that time?
Well, it's difficult because I think a lot of the challenges are yet to come. So I think there's been a real push-pull of what's been going on for children, because in some respects what's been going on has been quite frightening and worrying, but in other respects, they've spent much more time with their parents, so they may be feeling more secure because their primary caregivers are, if we'd have been through something as scary and uncertain and all of the unknowns around COVID, and they'd still had to go to school through that process, for example, then that might have been much more worrying for them. Yeah. But because the huge majority of children, not all of them unfortunately, but the huge majority have been well supported by parents who are assuring their well-being and reassuring them and all of that. But of course they're just getting their heads around the changes and the uncertainty that's behind them. And now we're going into another phase of massive change and uncertainty. So I think, and of course, none of us we've never in the world had this kind of experience where we've done this before, where the whole world has closed its education systems down, etc. So I think there's a real, everybody's trying to second guess what's going to happen next and how this might affect children, which is the right thing to do. We need to anticipate these might be the issues and these are the safety nets we're going to put in place to try and support children and young people. None of us really know.
No.
And as adults, we are dealing with our own responses, our own emotional responses, our own feelings around change and uncertainty, as well as trying to support our children through this as well.
Yeah. So, given it is uncertain, I mean, none of us gets off this planet alive, do we? So, I mean, the whole thing is uncertain. One of the things I'm finding slightly needling for me is the fact that people are saying, well, as adults, you know, how are you coping? And I'm thinking, well, we've been coping as we've been coping for since March. So can you change your record? You know, why everybody's trying to make it worse now? How are you coping? And all this hand wringing, and I'm thinking, well, we've got through it so far. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. Whatever happens, but there isn't an alternative, really, is it? But
no, we have no choice.
But that, given this uncertainty, you put two things that sort of like jump out to me from what you said, Jo, is the uncertainty and the safety net.
Yes.
So we don't know what's going to happen. We never know what's going to happen in life. So is the answer the safety net and raising that safety net and helping kids see that safety net? What is it that we should be doing? What is it that the viewers should be doing, given the certainty, given the uncertainty that there is around?
There's one thing that we can do. It's building up our children's sense of being competent, capable human beings. And obviously there are numerous ways that we can do that. But I think that's, like you said, the uncertainty is going to be around for a while. And I think from an adult perspective, probably not from a child's perspective, but from an adult's perspective, what's happened over the last few months has really brought into focus that we've all had this false sense of security about, especially in the Western developed world, that we have more control over the future and our own lives and the environment than we've actually had. I think for me, that's really happened. There's kind of this false sense of we're in charge here, we're in control here. And, you know, the whole world has had the rug pulled out from under their feet. And so I think what that's brought into focus is that we have to, for all of us, kind of get our heads around the fact that we don't know what's around the corner, that the only thing we are in charge of is how we respond. So building up our children's sense of capability and competence isn't about making them feel that an uncertain future is certain, but that they have the skills and the competence to deal with whatever life throws at them and to go into that uncertainty with confidence and resilience, so they feel that they can manage what comes their way when it comes their way, rather than needing to know what's going to happen so they can be equipped to deal with it.
But they need to see that for themselves, though, don't they? I mean, you're talking about changing. You're talking about changing people's behaviour. You're talking about helping kids see their own resilience. But they need to see that for themselves. It's no good us just telling them this stuff, because it's not trying to shove that information into their head.
Yes.
Well, I mean, so I would say that sounds to me like more like a coaching conversation rather than some trying to persuade them.
Yeah, it's about the experience of feeling capable and competent. So I think that there's numerous ways that we can build that into our children's experience. And one of the concerns that I have as children go back into school is that there is this big pressure from high up coming to catch up. You know, schools have to get children caught up. And so the risk is that at school, at least, and I know lots of schools are working against this, but from a kind of policy level, the risk is that children are forced to catch up, so that all of our energies go into the deficit, what's wrong, what they're not good enough at yet, what they need to do more of, rather than what they're already capable of, what their strengths already are. So what I would call professionally a strengths-based approach. And so, although I'm not saying, of course, there is going to be some focus necessary on helping children catch up academically, for all of us, whether we're working in schools or whether we're parents or whether if we have a role in the life of a child, from my perspective, it's all of our responsibility to make our children to take a strengths-based approach. So they still get to invest in the activities, the whatever that makes that they're already good at and already strong at and already competent at. We keep building on that. We don't just put all of our energies into catching up, getting better. Where's the weakness? Where's the deficit?
So how do we get our kids to see their strengths?
Obviously, first of all, give them lots and lots of opportunities to do those kind of things. But then I think, like you said, it's almost like a coaching conversation to make them reflect, to help them reflect on what their capabilities are, what their strengths are. So it can just be for very young children, it can be as simple as, what do you like to do? And another thing that that can really help children is, and it's necessary, especially now, because children have, well, all of us, but obviously, you know, we're talking about children here, we have lost our personal power massively over the last 6 months. I was listening to you talking to Steph for the previous conversation about, you know, the masks and all the regulations around having to wear masks. Our freedoms have been massively limited, and they still are. We've got a lot of our decision making power has been taken away from us, and children are no different than that. And so to bring that sense of strength and competence that I'm talking about here, it's really important that we give children a sense of agency back. So where there is an opportunity for them to make decisions, to influence their own outcomes, to have a sense of autonomy, that we put loads and loads of that opportunities into their life. And that can be the simplicities of which pajamas do you want to wear, or what filling do you want in your sandwich, to the much bigger decisions about what their life looks like. But it's very easy, especially in the kind of rush of especially getting kids back to school, is that we do everything for them. We line everything up for them. We make all of the decisions for them, because that can certainly make our lives easier for them. But what that doesn't give them is a sense of agency in their own lives. So bringing that in at every available level, and then making them aware. So it could simply be a question of, if you've given them a decision, why did you choose that? So it reinforces their sense of being a decision maker, of having that role in their own life.
So that's going quite big. Well, little and big.
Yes.
With this agency thing. What about helping? If we go back to that sort of stuff about helping them see their resilience for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And their confidence for themselves. What do you find useful when we're looking at something like that? When we're addressing that topic about that? Because when we're in a rush, we tell people stuff, and they don't, whether they're adults or whether they're kids, we tell people stuff, and they don't hear what we say. Mm-hmm. So how? And if we say something to a child about their confidence, and they don't hear it, then if it doesn't land for them. So how do we get the children to see this stuff for themselves? To see. I mean, the example I always give, Jo, is the fact that we learn to walk by falling over. A lot of people talk about resilience as being a skill, but I think it's actually something that's innate within us. So it needs kind of uncovering rather than discovering, if you like, or learning. Resilience sounds like a lot of people, treat it like it's something that we do down at the gym, like we train a muscle.
Yes.
And they teach resilience like a muscle, whereas no, kids. They didn't need Tony Robbins and motivational course to learn to walk. They wanted to walk. They fell over. They get up and they go again. So they're kind of like innately resilient. But a lot of adults don't see it that way. And if they don't see it that way, then how can we expect their kids to see it? So how do we take these some might say as tricky concepts and get our children to see their own resilience, their own confidence, how they've got through so far. How do we get them to see that?
Well, I think, like you said, it's very easy for us to just say to a child either what we want them to do or what we've seen them doing. Oh, you know, well done for doing that, for example. But I think it's as much as you can to make it a two-way exchange. And a lot of that is just about extending the conversation. So, for example, let's say, really basic example, but I know that by the end of this week, I'm going to be having these issues with my 6-year-old who's going back to school on Thursday. So I might say, right, get your shoes on and your coat on. And for a lot of parents, that's the big getting out of the house in the morning. So rather than saying, right, get your shoes on and get your coat on and getting out of the house, once we're out of the house, then I would say, thank you for. So the first thing I do is thank, and then I acknowledge that he has done those things. If we've had a difficulty with that, then I might say, how do you think we could do that better next time? So there's a two-way exchange here. So again, he gets this sense of that this is something I'm in control of. This, even if I'm not doing this brilliantly yet, then this is an area for me to grow into. I've got the capability and the competence to do this. If we get, like, you know, first day back on Thursday, if we get out of the house without any issues at all, then what I could say to him is, hey, Cass, we did brilliantly. I thought this might happen and it didn't. How do you think we made that happen? So again, that's kind of putting the responsibility on him for the reason why X, Y, and Z happened was because of something you did, something that you're in control over. So I think it's just making opportunities for those times where it's easy for us to just assume that our child knows what's going on, or it's very easy for us to just move on to the next thing because we're in a hurry. Just taking 30 seconds for a two-way exchange for your child to either, rather than just us saying, oh, you did that well, because that doesn't kind of go in. They have to think, what did I do well then? What was it about me that made the difference?
Yeah.
And again, you could reinforce that. So the next morning, I might say, hey, remember what did we do? Let's remind ourselves what we did well yesterday that made a difference. Okay, so what are we going to do today? And make it really concrete. We're going to do these 1, 2, 3 things.
Yeah.
So it's not kind of things that are floating in the air. It's very concrete actions that we can do, he can do, or we can do together to make that thing happen.
So it's about a time and a question, really, isn't it? It's a two-way. It's a two-way conversation. So it's a question rather than a statement.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a question rather than a statement, and that's the way that we get there. And it's recapping, because you've got that where you're going, the big thing about agency, and then breaking it right down to the tiniest little thing. So and that's how we empower kids. I remember just before lockdown started, I was at the swimming pool and I saw all the kids. The swimming lesson was about to start, and I saw all the shoes lined up, and every single one of them had Velcro. Like it was a Velcro Velcro fasteners rather than the laces, and I just thought that must be a sign of something. That there must be something there about the time. Are we in so much of a rush that we don't do the laces thing, and we're in the Velcro, and it is taking that, as you say, taking that big picture thing like agency, but bringing it down to something as specific and tiny and relevant in that moment as recapping on what went wrong. Recapping on what went right yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and asking the child, what is it? How can we make that happen again?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and that they're in control of that. That's something that that they have, that they play an active role in. It's not just something that they get told to do. And I think that's ironic what you've just said, really, about the swimming lessons, because one of the most important ways that we can make a child feel competent is to teach them a new skill. So you've kind of got that irony of being taught to swim, which is it's very obviously, primarily it's a life-saving skill, the ability to keep yourself alive. But outside of that, there's this learning how to swim or ride a bike or anything teaches you that you're capable of growing in personal development, and at the same time you've got these shoes lined up which are all saying we're too busy to tie our.
Oh yeah, I'm conscious. As soon as I said that, I thought, am I in danger of coming across like some grumpy old bloke, who reads the Daily Mail? I don't, by the way, readers, viewers, who is, is making some sort of statement about kids not being able to tie their shoelaces. As soon as I said that, I thought somebody could jump on that, But what is a more, should we be on shoe? There must have been a cultural change in my time. Because I can't remember having. We had like shoes with a buckle, and you just like a belt fastening. It just hooked it over a pin, and that's how we did it until we learned how to learn to tie our shoelaces. But yeah, as soon as I said that, I thought maybe I'm just a little bit out of touch with. Don't want to criticize anybody with the Velcro shoes,
You made me think, really, because my son is 6 and he has Velcro shoes, and he was, at least when in March, when he last went swimming, a competent swimmer, even though he's got Velcro shoes. However, you mentioned earlier on about resilience is innate, and my son is at that stage now where he wants to learn to tie a bow himself. Not because he wants shoes with a tie on. I think he likes the Velcro shoes because they're very convenient. But there is something innate in children that they want to develop, and they want to grow, and they want to learn new skills. So I think there's a bit of tension in that, really, I suppose, because a lot of children then get very frustrated and upset when they can't do something new. And
me too. When I'm struggling with the tech, I'm 53. I'm trying to find some new tech, and it's not working. And it's just like, well, do you just keep going, or sorry?
Yeah, so well, we've got our own resistances to learning, but under all of that, we have neurodevelopmentally, frustration is actually a very, very important emotion. We are hardwired for frustration, and the reason we're hardwired for frustration is because if we gave up the first time around, we'd never survive. It's only through working through frustration where we actually learn to develop any skill. Because like you said, with walking, babies don't get up and say, I'd like to walk now, and just get up and walk. They need to experience frustration, because it's frustration that drives you to try again.
It's
that kind of feeling. So I think I guess where we've led this conversation is to not be afraid of our children's frustration, and to not give up on their behalf. Because the opposite, what we're talking about, for example, your thing with tech is a thing called learned helplessness, where we can learn innately we are designed to grow and develop. But it's very, very easy for humans to learn to be helpless as well. I'm not doing this. I'm not very good at this.
Is that why they're called help desks? We're called help desks.
Yeah, I guess
we call help desk, when we're struggling with our IT, because we are helpless, and is like I've got bigger fish to fry. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, well, it's just, the thing is with the help desk, that's not a learned helplessness. That's a kind of step of, I'm not doing this, I can't do this myself, so I'll find a way. That's kind of your next step in your frustration. That's I'll find a way to solve the problem. It's when we give up and we stop trying to solve the problem and just say, oh, I can't do this, I'm not going to bother trying anymore. And that's when we lose our resilience. That's kind of when we get to the mindset of, I can't do this, I'll never be any good at this, I'm not that person, rather than staying in that space of saying, if there's a problem to solve, if I can't solve it myself, resilience isn't about being able to solve the problem yourself, it's about being able to find the support to help you to solve the problem. Yeah. But ultimately, in order to have that resilience, what you need is the sense of, I can find a way to solve this problem. I'm not powerless, I'm not helpless.
Yeah.
I can find a way. And that's kind of what we need to be instilling in our kids. And I appreciate we're kind of running out of time now, but what we haven't spoken about, and I'd like to at least leave in our viewers' mind, is actually how are we modelling these skills and competencies to our own children? Because if they ultimately learn from us, if we kind of are very explicit about, I'm not very good at this, but I'm going to try. I don't particularly like this, but I can see the long-term gain, so I'm going to do this. I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to learn. Our children have very, very clearly and obviously got to see and experiencing us modelling those behaviours and attitudes for them to do that too.
Yeah, yeah. And how confident do you see parents in building their how confident do you see parents are in building their children's confidence? Because that's what modelling for me comes down to.
Mm-hmm. It's mixed. I think a lot of parents have all the best of intentions to do the right thing by their child, but they're not looking as closely as they could at what their children are learning from them. So, for example, I might speak to a parent who says, I want my child to manage their frustration better and to communicate more effectively. And then when you dig a little bit deeper, you find that that parent is having difficulty managing their own frustrations and communicating better. So I think I'm not saying any issue that you have, any concern you have with your child is a mirror or a reflection of your own behaviour at all. But I think always think, well, actually, what is my child learning from me? Not just the do's and the don'ts, and this is how I parent, but actually what behaviours and attitudes am I exhibiting that my child can model and pattern on?
Yeah, yeah. So with that, is there anything that you could that pops into your head about parents' confidence about the kids going back to school?
Yeah, I think I mean, there's lots of thoughts about that, but I think it's really important that even if, as parents, of course, we all have our own concerns about sending our children back, myself included. But I think it's really important for us to express a sense of faith and belief in what's to come. You know, that the teachers, the schools are looking after your best interests, and there's things in place to help keep you safe. Just things like when we say goodbye to our kids at the beginning of the day. You know, one thing I routinely say to my son, and I'm not saying this is a prescriptive way of doing it or anything like that, is I'm sure you're going to have a fantastic day, and I can't wait to hear all about it. So just being, even if they're dashing off and they're not listening, evidently listening to what you're saying, still say it, because it will resonate, it will ripple through somewhere. But and that's not to say if a child says, I'm worried about school, you don't say, oh, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. That never makes a difference. Nobody stops worrying about something because somebody said, oh, don't worry, it will be fine. Hear the concern, say, I totally understand it. It's going to be a bit of a challenging time over the last few months. However, I want you to know I believe in you. I'll be thinking of you all day. You'll be in my heart. So being held in the heart and mind of somebody else is a very, very powerful experience. So being very explicit about that. I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. And you might give them a little task. So I want you to tell me what your favorite 10 minutes of the school day was, or I want you to watch out for somebody who makes you smile, or I want you to find somebody I want you to find somebody and make their day better today. So give them a little task that is based on their sense of competence and strength, and just keeps you as a parent with them in their heart and mind during that period of separation. And so again, when you come back together, I've really missed you. Now tell me, what have you been doing with your day? Tell me what your favorite bit of the day was. You know, just really engage them in your interest in what's been going on. But like I said, first and foremost, your faith and belief that whatever happens, it may not be the best day of their lives. They may find it a little bit of a struggle or a little bit of a challenge, but you have faith and confidence in their ability to cope. And you're looking forward to seeing them again at the end of it and hearing all about it.
That's a lovely thought to finish on.
Mm.
I'm going to keep you in my heart, Jo, today.
Good. Good.
That's brilliant. Okay. Thanks a lot, viewers. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay.